Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Have you ever heard of this game called Risk of Rain 2? You probably saw the title of this video and thought, what the hell is this guy talking about? Well, Risk of Rain 2 is a roguelite third-person shooter made by Hapu Games in 2019 where you run around on this planet called Petrichor 5. You play as a survivor from the ship UES Safe Travels. You and up to 3 other friends get to run around this planet collecting items to make you more powerful than any god you could think of. Go ahead, think of one. It's stronger than that. Got your attention? Hope so, because I'm going to be talking about this game for a bit longer than most people probably should. When I first got this game in 2019, I was but a young lad. I didn't know anything about it, I just thought it looked neat. I didn't even know what a roguelite was. You might not know what that is, so good thing I'm here, because some people who play these games don't even know what they are either. Rogue was a video game that was released way back in the days of yore, 1980. This game is so old, the original version of it was made entirely with ASCII characters to make up the game. This way literally any computer could play it, even if you didn't have a dedicated graphical interface. You might think, why is this important? And that's because this game was so fun and well received, it's what named this entire game genre. To further explain this game, you play as an adventurer that travels through an unmapped dungeon, fighting monsters and collecting treasure with the goal of getting to the bottom, getting the amulet of Yendor, and getting back to the surface. Then comes the parts that makes up the entire genre. Rogue had the game get harder and harder the more you go on into the dungeon, along with something that wasn't done before in any other game. Everything in this dungeon, the monster placements, the treasure you collect, the very rooms you explore themselves are randomly generated. The biggest appeal of the roguelike and light genres are that no two runs are completely the same. They have the same or similar elements. You're going through a dungeon fighting monsters with the same end goal, but the way you do that isn't the same if you do it then try again the next day. That is one of my favorite things about this genre. The story is never told the same twice. Now what's the difference between a roguelike and a roguelite? Much like the original 1980 game, roguelike and lights are games that randomly generate how the game is played, but in a roguelike, when you die, it's all over. A roguelite is simply the light version of that. They usually have upgrades you can get or collectibles that you can acquire that you can use in later runs. This usually makes things easier in roguelites compared to the true to form roguelikes. There are more roguelites than likes nowadays. Some popular ones being Hades, Cult of the Lamb, Vampire Survivors, I believe Darkest Dungeon, and even to an extent games like Repo, Peak, and Lethal Company can be considered roguelites. Then there's Risk of Rain 2. So why do I care so much about this one specific game where there are so many other games in this genre? While I do love pretty much any game like this, Risk of Rain 2 just stands out. While it doesn't have fancy crazy graphics, it has many other things that help it stand out amongst the crowd, at least for me. Before I get into that, let me explain that Risk of Rain 2 is in fact a sequel, obviously. Risk of Rain 1 is another roguelite, but unlike many games, these two games, while of course sharing themes and story and stuff, are very different from each other. You look at The Last of Us 1 and 2 side by side and you think, yeah, that's a sequel, alright? Then you do the same for Risk of Rain 1 and 2 and you'll probably think, these two games are related? Yeah, the first game is a 2D pixel art looter shooter, while the second game is 3D and does things a little differently. I won't explain the differences too much because I'm not gonna lie, I played Risk of Rain 1 like twice and don't feel like playing it again right now. Besides, this video is about the sequel, so back to that. Risk of Rain 2 makes up for its quote-unquote bad graphics with actual content. The game has characters you play as called survivors. These survivors in order on the select screen are Commando, Huntress, Bandit, Multi, Engineer, Artificer, Mercenary, Rex, Loader, Acrid, Captain, Railgunner, Void Fiend, Seeker, False Sun, and Chef. Those last 5 characters are DLC characters that I'll get into later. Each and every character has their own different skills and playstyles that ensures that anyone who gets the game will be able to find one character that fits how they would like to play. The first 2 characters you have unlocked are Commando and Huntress, so once you're done spending all 0.5 seconds trying to decide who's the better character, you can dive right into playing the game. When you see gameplay footage of Risk of Rain, the first thing you think is probably, wow, this is overwhelming. It would probably be right. However, when you first drop into the planet, things are usually quite peaceful. You are in this verdant plateau with rocks and ruins strewn about. Things don't stay quite like this forever though. You are in a hostile world and you are the intruder. Soon enemies like beetles, Lumerians, and stone titans show up trying to kill you, but you can easily deal with them. Here's where some of the roguelite gameplay comes in. As you defeat enemies, you collect good old USD from them. You can use this money to do many things. with the main one being opening chests to get items to make your character stronger. You can also do things like repair drones, turrets, and gamble, baby, let's go! Oh. There are shrines in this game where if you activate them, it causes something to happen. All those shrines are the Shrine of Blood, which exchanges your life for money, up to 93% of it. Shrine of the Mountain, which spawns more bosses and rewards for you at the teleporter. Shrine of Combat, which can either spawn one really powerful big enemy, boss, or strong small enemies for you to fight. Shrine of the Woods, which rarely spawns, and exchanges money for a circle of healing. The Shrine of Order, which randomly selects one item of one rarity in the player's inventory and makes all items of that one rarity that one item. And the Shrine of Chance, which for a small fee that increases after each loss has a chance to give you items or strong equipment like the Hunter's Tricorn or Gubo Jr. There's also the Gold Altar, which is a recolor of the Shrine of Chance that for a large sum of money will make a gold portal appear when you leave the stage that will take you to a secret level. All these and more can spawn in levels that you play, most of which are here to help you make your character the strongest you could possibly make any single entity in the universe. Like seriously, there are these enemies called whose whole job, as far as I can tell from the lore, is to go out and scout and to imprison things into the void. And when you become very powerful and loop your run, they can just spawn and try to imprison you by collapsing a black hole on you when they die. I might have made it seem like you can take your time nice and slow with this game, which you can. It doesn't really matter how slow or fast you go, but also in the top right corner there's a difficulty meter that slowly gets harder and harder as time goes on, making enemies stronger and more plentiful. Later on, bosses can just start spawning as normal enemies. The scaling difficulty goes from easy to normal, hard, very hard, insane, impossible, to I see you, I'm coming for you, then going on forever. Kinda. Technically it has an end. This subcategory of difficulty has its own subcategory displayed as levels next to the difficulty indicator, with the max being 99. Here's the math. Then there's the actual game difficulty you choose in a character select screen. You can actually change a lot of things here, like choosing artifacts that change the fundamental ways the game is played, like making it so that monsters drop loot or there's now friendly fire, or a mimic that spawns and hunts you down. But there are three main difficulties in Risk of Rain 2. Going from easiest to hardest are Drizzle, Rainstorm, and Monsoon. These difficulties change a decent amount when it comes to how you will face challenges. With Drizzle, the game is relatively chill, but still the classic Risk of Rain chaotic, just making it so that scaling difficulty is half speed. You will have more armor, and the health regen starts at 1.5. While Monsoon has scaling difficulty at 150% its normal speed, and your regen starts at 0.6. Rainstorm is, of course, the middle ground for these. When you play on Monsoon, first of all, prepare for hell, because this planet is not kind. But you also unlock cosmetic rewards for the survivors if you manage to beat the game. There is kind of a last difficulty past Monsoon called Eclipse, which is a different game mode that stacks harder and harder challenge modifiers beyond what Monsoon offers. So what is the goal of Risk of Rain? After you're done looting the first level, your goal, as noted in one of the corners of the screen, is to find a teleporter. They look like this. Once you find the teleporter, you are prompted to activate it. This will start the teleporter event in which a bunch of enemies and a boss will spawn. You have to defeat the boss in order for the charger to finish, and if you activate a Shrine on the Mountain, additional bosses will spawn. When you kill the boss, you get an item as a reward. They will usually range from pretty to hey, that's useful. Monsters stop spawning on the map once the event is complete, and you can explore to your leisure and leave once you are ready, with the teleporter turning all unspent cash into XP. Don't worry about not having money transferred to the next stage though, because you get a lot of money in later stages. As you go through the wide variety of stages, you get many items, maybe some lore entries or a new character to play as. When you get to the 5th stage in your run, while the order of the previous stages are chosen randomly from a pool of choices depending on which stage number you're on, this one is always the same. This stage is special. You do the usual schedule of killing monsters, getting fat stacks, and collecting loot, but then when you're ready to go to the teleporter, you notice it's different. Instead of the one you're used to finding, you find a stone ring of arching pillars. You have a choice to make here. Fulfill your fate and have the teleporter so it's aligned with the moon of Petrichor 5, or align it with the planet itself, looping yourself and keeping the run going. Looping your run starts you over with the pull of the first stages and onwards, but you get to keep your items and equipment, and the difficulty keeps going. At every third stage after looping, you get a celestial portal that spawns at the teleporter. When you go in there, you come to a moment, Fractured, one of the many hidden realms of Risk of Rain, where you get to make another choice: go back and keep looping, or obliterate yourself. Ending the run and leaving your fate to be unknown. Let's go back to Sky Meadow. If you choose instead to accomplish your goal and align the teleporter with the moon, you go to the final stage. This is the final stage of Risk of Rain. While you might think that this and a moment Fractured would be the final stages, only Commencement is. Why? Because there's no going back after this, no repeat, loop, or start over. This is the end. There is no loot to be directly gained here like the other stages. Instead, there are cauldrons that let you sacrifice a certain number of items to get a new one. Outside of that, to continue you have to charge 4 pillars by staying in their sphere of influence for a certain amount of time, or by giving your health to the pillars of blood. Once all of these pillars are complete, 4 bounce pads are activated around the environments that launch you far into the air and into the arena of Mithrix, King of Nothing. You might be wondering, wow, this game has taken such a crazy tone shift, and you would be right. This is because the lore Risk of Rain has is crazy. I might go into a little more later, or maybe make a whole video on it because there is a lot to cover. But what I can cover right now is what Commencement is. It's not just a specific area on the moon of Petrichor 5, it is the very place where Mithrix was imprisoned by his brother, Providence. Mithrix's very own throne where he can rule over nothing, surrounded by his own thoughts and heartless creations, the Lunar Chimera. Mithrix and Providence are 2 godlike beings. Their works and creations are the reasons why Petrichor 5 exists. For reasons I can't explain right now because of time constraints, they hate each other. While Providence loved and created life, Mithrix was indifferent, but more often cruel to it. This eventually led to Providence imprisoning Mithrix here. All there is left here are a workshop with Lunar Chimera parts and tools strewn about, and an arena where the Pillars of Blood can be found. When you arrive here after going up a very, very large ramp, you find a rescue ship with dead commandos around it. Your goal upon finding it is to release it, which you accomplish by going up to Mithrix's arena, defeating him, then running back to the rescue ship and charging it up in a 3-minute time limit. Why the time limit? Because with Mithrix's death, he rigged the moon to goddamn explode. You have to fight off Lunar Chimera and Void Reavers until the ship is ready to take off. Upon fully charging the ship, your character gets inside and flies off. And the last thing you see is the moon of Petrichor 5, just before exploding, getting consumed by the void. This is the end of Risk of Rain 2, at least the base game. You are given a special message on the screen depending on the character you are, and the credits roll. As I have brought up a few times, Risk of Rain has DLCs. This is going to date the video a bit, but as of writing there are only 2 DLCs out, those being Survivors of the Void and Seekers of the Storm, with a new one coming out soon on November 18th, 2025 called Alloyed Collective. These DLCs add a lot more content, especially a bunch more lore for the game. New stages, survivors, and items including a new item type, Void items, that add a cool spin on how you would build your character since they change old items from the base game and give them completely different stats. But every base game item that you collect now turns into the respective Void item if you have collected it. The first DLC, Survivors of the Void, was pretty well received, but Seekers of the Storm, even to this day, has mixed reviews and had a lot of problems like bugs, glitches, and poor balancing. This doesn't mean it's a bad DLC by any means. I personally like both of these DLCs very much and love the new things they bring, especially to the story of Risk of Rain. Let's go a little further into these DLCs. The first one to be released was Survivors of the Void, released in March of 2022. The story of the DLC is that the Void has started to overtake Petrichor 5, and you have to fight off its corruption or face being consumed by it yourself. This DLC added 2 new survivors, Railgunner, who is unlocked when you get the DLC, and whose entire kit is focused around the fact that she is the only sniper in the game. Instead of fending off hordes of the planet's native inhabitants like other survivors, she is more geared towards picking off enemies one by one and obliterating bosses in one shot. The second survivor added in this DLC is Void Fiend. Void Fiend, having escaped the simulacrum in the void, is a powerful corrupted commando whose abilities are special because Void Fiend has two forms. A stable form that you will probably stay in most of the time, and a powerful corrupted form that deals a lot of damage and changes all of his abilities into corrupted forms of themselves. Void Fiend is unlocked by completing the challenge Drag Below, which requires you beat 50 waves of the simulacrum or defeat the boss of the planetarium. Speaking of, the rest of this DLC adds 3 new bosses, 5 environments, 4 interactables, 11 monsters with 2 new elite variants, 41 new items, 14 being void items, 9 new songs for the OST, and the simulacrum game mode. Ugh. All of this including a bunch of updates and minor changes to things like base game items and environments, and of course logbook entries for all of these. The second DLC, Seekers of the Storm, was released in August of 2024. Before I get into what this DLC added, I have to talk about Gearbox. Back in 2022, Gearbox bought the IP for Risk of Rain, and it was confirmed that the original developers were no longer working on Risk of Rain 2, and all development was transferred over to Gearbox. Then Seekers of the Storm came out, and people were generally disappointed with how it launched, especially compared to Survivors of the Void. How Gearbox handles the future development of this game, and the series overall, is of great concern for me, because, I mean, you've seen everything in this video so far, I think you can figure it out. Anyways, the story of this DLC is a little more involved compared to the last one. With the death of Providence and the imprisonment of Mithrix on the moon, the creatures that Providence helped on Petrichor 5 feel scared and defenseless now that basically their god is dead. The Lumerians, that's these little lizard fellows that you fight, built a golden statue of Providence as a tribute to him. But there is another being named Aurelianite, who is locked away in a realm called the Gilded Coast. She was locked away by both Providence and Mithrix, but now that neither of them can keep tabs on her, she slowly spreads her influence out of the Gilded Coast. Side note, some Lumerians worshipped Aurelianite, leading to the creation of the Altar of Gold I mentioned earlier, with the secret level that the portal takes you to being the Gilded Coast where you can fight Aurelianite. But Aurelianite's power brings life to the golden statue of Providence, creating the false sun. Mithrix's followers find the false sun and corrupt it, causing the once peaceful false sun to share Mithrix's violence and vengeance, and turning him to resemble the dark blue and gray themes that Commencement has. All of this is important because the false sun is the main antagonist of Survivors of the Storm, with your goal being to go out and take the path of defeating the false sun. This DLC adds 3 new characters, the Seeker that has some neat monk abilities and prioritizes aiding your teammates and companions by healing and fighting. This is also the only character that can revive other players, which is cool. You unlock her by default with the DLC. Next is Chef, who is a robot, take a wild guess, that you unlock by bringing 3 specific item ingredients to the Reformed Altar stage. His abilities focus on power and status effects to cook your enemies. The last character is a mystery. Woo! I'm kidding, it's the False Sun. Yeah, that's neat. In this DLC, he is the antagonist and final boss, and after defeating him in a pretty challenging fight, you unlock him as long as you have the Halcyon Seed from Aurelianite with you. His abilities are based around the fact that he is slow and deals really high melee damage, and he has a passive called Growth that makes it so that with the more bonus health you get through items, the better some of your abilities get. Along with these survivors, Survivors of the Storm adds new skins for all the survivors that you unlock from defeating the final boss with said characters, 3 new monsters, 1 new final boss, 3 new shrines, 2 new elite variants, 5 new environments, 3 of which having night variants, 17 new items, and 2 new equipment. Along with new quality of life changes, this DLC is a neat addition to the Risk of Rain lineup of DLCs, and I pray that they don't ruin the game with the Alloyed Collective. One last cool thing with these DLCs is that if you're playing with friends, only one person in the lobby needs the DLCs for everyone to play with the content. The only thing you miss out on if you don't have the DLCs and play this way is that you don't get to play as the new survivors, and you don't unlock the new items for future runs for obvious reasons. So the new Alloyed Collective DLC has been released, and I played it when it first came out. All I have to say is, thank God it's great! The new items, drones, characters, just Even the music, despite not being made by the guy who made the previous music, is pretty good. I even think the little infographic that they made showing off all the new stuff looks great. I don't care how poorly optimized Borderlands 4 is, because they clearly were more focused on what was truly important. Anyways, back to the next main topic for this video. The last thing I'm going to touch on is this game's wonderful atmosphere and music. These two elements in every stage helps give you the thought that you are not welcome on this planet. You have to do your best to survive in this hostile world to complete your mission. I've always thought sound design and music are some of the most important things you have to get right in media, especially with games. The beautiful music made by Chris Christodoulou accompanies this game's harsh terrain by filling the air with fantastical synths, drums, and guitars that even on the title screen alone will have you pausing to just take it in. The music in this game was definitely a large part as to why I got so into it. The artistry that went into this is just so good. For a silly little game like this, all you really need for the bare minimum is some good combat songs and a couple of ambient tracks to tie things together when enemies aren't trying to tear you apart. Instead, Christodoulou was tasked with making a soundtrack for this third-person roguelite and decided to put his literal soul into it, proving indie games make the best damn soundtracks. Here's some of my personal favorite songs from the game. The Rain formerly known as Purple, Risk of Rain 2, Con Lentid Poderosa, The Raindrop That Fell to the Sky, Om Mani Padme Hum Part 2, They Might As Well Be Dead, and Once in a Lullaby. These aren't of course all the absolutely amazing songs in this game, but if I were to go through all of the ones that I like from this game, this video would be twice as long. These beautiful melodies give Risk of Rain a whole new identity outside of just being an indie roguelite. It helps people who are playing the game see it for more than just the game where you obliterate the local fauna, and think maybe there's more meaning to what you're doing here. Maybe there's a reason as to why everything here is the way it is. To bring this video to a close, Risk of Rain 2 is a great roguelite that has a large cast of ever-growing characters to fit the playstyles of anyone who would possibly want to play this game. The original developers filled this game with an enormous amount of content for you to play through and a mind-shattering amount of lore to learn about if that's your thing. All of this paired together with breathtaking environments and the astonishing OST makes a game that I think everyone should give a try at least once. Maybe then you'll see how I've come to love this game so much. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon.